Hello, hello. This is Bettye Keys. It is that time to begin. I'm honored to be here with you all at Brown College of Court Reporting. I know you all are going to be busy getting a really great education, and I'm hopeful that this meeting that we're having will help kick things off in an understandable way. A quick little introduction about me. I'm a certified court reporter and certified shorthand reporter at the state level, and also hold certified verbatim reporter master and real-time verbatim reporter certifications through the National Verbatim Reporters Association. I'm the developer of content related to speech recognition-based real-time voice writing techniques and theories, including books and training videos, and I've worked across all voice writing disciplines, not just in court reporting, having created real-time training programs for governmental and private entities throughout the United States and abroad. I've used speech recognition from the inception of my reporting career. I currently work as an official court reporter in the state of Maryland as I continue to contribute ideas and methods to cultivate the reporting profession through the advancement of real-time voice writing practices. And one thing I wanted to say is you won't see me on social media much out there making posts because I'm kind of I'm social, but I'm an introvert. So I think what I'm considered is a social introvert. So anyway, the reason I'm pointing that out is you will, I know you all, many of you engage on social media. It's not that I don't care. It's just I tend to be more private in my interactions publicly. So one thing I wanted to mention about social media is engaging can be quite fun and sometimes highly informative, especially in special interest groups with like-minded people who do a lot of sharing on topics we like. But it's a good idea to stay grounded with knowledge of facts as you read others' opinions about best practices for voice writing. There's all kinds of great speech recognition user forums out there, like No Brainer and just Dragon user forums in general, which tend to influence our voice writing community. So just know that their advice doesn't always perfectly apply since we're using speech recognition at a completely different level than the average speech recognition user. The main difference being that we're dictating at much faster speeds and with much lower volume, so that you don't get so inundated with information that you don't have an ability to close all gaps in any potential misunderstandings communicated by well-intentioned voice writing practitioners out there on social media. Empower yourself to think for yourself, using your own logic and reasoning when determining what advice to take or not take as you hone your craft. Now, in these textbooks, voice writing method and real-time voice writing, there's a lot of details explaining real-time voice writing setup and application here. But you'll find that each contains a chapter entitled Dictation Techniques, because its information is that worth repeating, as you'll carry out these practices through all your voice writing work. And being that the first skill to focus on is dictation, that's the purpose of this visit. I hear some feedback right now, and I would just ask all of you right now, if you're on cell phones, if you could just put your cell phone on mute at this time during the presentation, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. Oh, thank you very much. Someone just muted themselves. I appreciate that. Okay, so the purpose of this visit is dictation, since that's the first skill to focus on. Having a clear perspective in connecting all the dots of best practice dictation techniques, you'll have a solid experience with reliable speech recognition results as you move through all the more technical details of your coursework. Here's generally what we're going to discuss. The three main elements of speech recognition program design, so you know how it works in translating your speech. basic dictation rules established through scientific understanding of human-computer interaction, as there are special factors to consider being a voice writer versus being a general speech recognition user insofar as speech recognition behavior differences. I'll provide examples throughout our discussion, and then we'll have a Q&A session. Now for a quick overview, beginning with how speech recognition works. There are three main design elements to a speech engine. In our case, Dragon Professional Individual, which stores and manages data in a compartmentalized way while simultaneously sharing it with all its other components when determining which words to translate. The acoustic model stores and manages information about the acoustics of your voice and pronunciation data. That's sound. The vocabulary stores written data. The word bank, okay, is what it is, managing around 300,000 English words. And this also includes punctuation marks and symbols. And then the language or grammatical model deals strictly with syntax, taking into account word pairs and groups such as bigrams, trigrams, and so on, also connecting them with patterns of punctuation to determine which words fit best according to contexts it anticipates as common. These modeling algorithms work together in unison to form best match guesses of words so the speech engine can accurately output words like Mrs. Wright will write a letter right now, which is the sentence the textbook uses in example to this. These modeling algorithms work together in unison to form best match guesses of right. I already said that. Sorry. So essentially what's happening is when you give your speech sound during dictation, digital patterns are created which Dragon can then offer to the vocabulary to determine possible word matches, and it gathers the most likely ones in the group, which Dragon then compares to its language model. Also, language model is referred to sometimes as the grammatical model. Those are synonymous terms there, but different books you read, it'll call it something different. So I just wanted to point that out. But anyway, Dragon compares that information to its language model to make its final determination of which words to output based on context. That's what we refer to as the best match guess. And all of these three modeling algorithms need information about all words and punctuation marks you will dictate in order for proper recognition to occur. In its default condition, Dragon is already pre-programmed with all this information for common English words and punctuation for how they're regularly pronounced and their standard written and contextual forms. For this reason, using speech recognition for generic transcription purposes involves little setup work. In real-time voice writing, however, your dictation won't just simply involve regular English words and punctuation marks. The standardized framework known as a voice writing theory is the means by which, through our dictation, we identify speakers, insert punctuation, do Q&A formatting, use briefs for translating common phrases, insert parentheticals, produce single letters of the alphabet, and also having the ability to control whether numbers are spelled out or appear as digits, stuff like that. So you'll actually be using a form of speech shorthand, incorporating what's known as voice codes or code words. Those terms are also synonymous, mixed in with your dictation of regular English words. So in that sense, you should consider it a foreign language the speech engine knows nothing about, and therefore all three of these data sets must be provided to the speech engine by you for proper recognition to occur. The reason it's so important for me to explain this here is that after you get the speech engine programming basics down in your coursework and progress to the point where you're using your own creativity to design new code words, Getting your code words to be fully recognized isn't just a matter of adding them to the vocabulary and recording their pronunciations. You also have to give the language model all the contextual information it needs by having Dragon process custom prepared documents that contain these foreign words so Dragon understands their meaning based on grammar and won't choose a regular English word in its place simply because that's how the speech engine is pre-programmed in its base state. Anyway, that's a topic all on its own that your instructor will go through with you in detail. And the takeaway here is simply how speech recognition works. Let it be clear that there are differences in how speech recognition performs for a general purpose user versus a voice writer. For normal speech recognition dictation activities, very little education is required. However, speech recognition as it's applied in real-time voice writing requires training of specialized dictation methods that are designed to push a speech engine past the general use limits for which it was designed. Someone who's just using speech recognition to compose letters and write emails generally speaks in a full volume of voice and at any pace that's comfortable to them, with the luxury of pausing their dictation anytime they wish, say to compose a thought. Voice writers, on the other hand, must transcribe at real-time speeds to keep up with the words of all speakers for long periods of time without pausing. Imagine the computational load bearing down on the speech engine to recognize a voice writer's speech with the uphill tasks of managing word recognition on super low volumes at unnaturally high speeds it was never designed to expect. Obviously, accuracy is degraded for voice writers under those circumstances. That is, if no adjustments are made anywhere else to one's speech to help stabilize speech patterns enough to where Dragon can better manage itself with such unbridled information flow. And for voice writers, we simply can't compromise with Dragon on having to speak in low volumes at high speeds, even though it's designed not to work that way. Just one moment here. Sorry, I was just reading the chat window, making sure I'm being responsible here if anyone can't hear me. Okay, so the primary basis of real-time voice writing success comes from mastering proper dictation style. As already mentioned, voice writers must train to dictate at higher than average speeds with no loss of clarity in speech. Other factors which require training include breathing, proper enunciation, and keeping dictation patterns consistent with regard to pace, pitch, and volume. So let's cover some basics about the dictation method used in court reporting, beginning with dictating into a speech silencer. You want to make sure your speech silencer forms a secure enough seal around your mouth so that sound does not escape, as you don't want others nearby in the room with you to hear your dictation. You should be able to comfortably breathe, inhaling and exhaling primarily through your nose, but expelling air naturally through your mouth as you speak. As for volume, you'll want to speak in the lowest voice you possibly can without losing control of your steadiness and clarity of speech. It must be distinctive enough for the speech engine to recognize your words. However, you don't want to whisper because it will be difficult for the speech engine to decipher important nuances between similar sounding words. Whispered speech can also cause drops in text, since Dragon may interpret your wispy sounds as background noise, which it's accustomed to filtering out. Inevitably, during long periods of dictation, you will experience moisture buildup within your silencer. To reduce moisture buildup, you should use absorptive materials such as either paper towels, which is what I use actually, that can be regularly switched out, or swatches of ShamWow. I use paper towels because I don't like to reuse any material and have to clean it later. But whatever you prefer to use will work. As for dictation techniques, the first thing to be mindful about is your proper pronunciation of all words and getting into a carefully controlled steady rhythm, making sure each word is clearly distinguishable. So, of course, enunciate all words clearly. Larger multisyllable words tend to be recognized better than smaller one-syllable words. So pay special attention to small words such as and, in, the, and so on. Do be careful, however, not to over-enunciate those small words. Over-enunciation of a small word such as and could result in and a, and the, or and of. Always dictate at a consistent word per minute rate as well. This rule needs to be applied regardless of how fast speakers are talking. When speakers are talking too slow, don't match their slow pace. Use the phrase dictation technique and build or pause dictation technique and combined with phrasing and build their words in your memory until you're able to dictate all strings of words all together at an even pace. With fast speakers, you'll also have to build words into memory, but you'll need to rely on your word carrying ability as you continuously lag behind them with very little pausing. Say all words evenly without pausing between syllables, but don't run syllables together too quickly either. If you pause between syllables, Dragon will transcribe each syllable as a separate word. For example, if you say recognize speech, Dragon may recognize you to have said rec a nice beach. And if you say recognize speech, Dragon may transcribe something like recognize speak. To obtain accurate recognition, you'd need to say it this way: recognize speech. So I made each word a whole unit. I said it without pausing pausing between any syllables. Recognize speech. Also important to note is that monotone speech works best when dictating at high speeds. With the added variable of high-speed dictation, extra adjustment factors. Let me pause just one moment. I do hear some feedback. If all of you would please check your phones, make sure that you've got your cell phones on mute if you're on a cell phone. Thank you so much. Okay, where was I? So we were talking about monotone speech works best when you're dictating at high speeds. With the added variable of high-speed dictation, extra adjustment factors are imposed on Dragon to recognize your speech. So removing inflection will lessen that computational load that Dragon has to bear. In fact, it's important for you to remove as many unnecessary variables from your speech as possible. The variables of speech we should focus on controlling are volume, pitch, and pace. Notice the graph representing regular speech patterns. In ordinary conversation, we are accustomed to frequently changing our volume levels and using lots of inflection while fluctuating our speech between fast and slow paces. But these wide-ranging variables don't produce the best speech recognition results. The best speech recognition results are produced when your volume, pitch, and pace are always consistent. This should be your steady style of expression when you're dictating, so Dragon has less complexities to measure and make adjustments for during the recognition task. Let's focus on enunciation. Here are some good examples of small words that require very clear enunciation in order for Dragon to recognize them. And versus in. Bill versus pill. Flag versus flack. Leg versus lake. Also, be sure to make full production of all vowel and consonant sounds of all words that you dictate so Dragon does not confuse them with other words. For example, please versus police. thank you versus think you, been versus being, and be deliberate about maintaining boundaries between certain words requiring that distinction be made. For example, make sure versus makes your. Let's talk about contractions. In everyday conversation, we tend to swallow their ending sounds. Wouldn't, couldn't, didn't, shouldn't. Fully producing those ending sounds are very important. Without full and clear pronunciation of those words, they can easily be misrecognized for would, could, did, and should. It's our job to make sure Dragon hears the distinction between all these words. Wouldn't versus would. Couldn't versus could. Didn't versus did. And shouldn't versus should. Here's a helpful exercise. If you were to make a recording of yourself saying aloud each of the words on this screen, you'd quickly discover upon playing it back that the words in each of these groups can sound confusingly the same without context surrounding them to help you know their differences when you're talking at really fast paces. If your human ear can't figure it out, imagine how much more difficult it is on the speech engine. So say them as perfectly as possible, as the words within each of these groups will often pose recognition conflicts with each other if we're not careful to make those distinctions. We're, were, where. Any, and he, in thee. Wouldn't, would it, what it, want it, wanted, what did. Important, imported, imparted. He said, he sat, he's at. Just make a habit of always pronouncing all words very distinctly so the speech engine does not confuse them with other words. Since your textbooks give details about the purposes of voice codes and when to use them in your dictation, here I'll introduce just a handful, focusing on how to say them. Realize that voice codes will be a useful dictation shorthand method only when they are pronounced properly. So memorize these pronunciations as you say them. Be sure to say them clearly enough to where Dragon will recognize the distinction between the way you say your voice codes and the way you say regular English words. And it's also very important not to break up your voice code pronunciations by pausing between syllables. Say the entire voice code pronunciation all at once, tying each syllable together, or else Dragon will end up recognizing them as regular English words instead. Let's begin with the pronunciations of the main punctuation marks. Period is pronounced pirk. Question mark is pronounced qui. Comma is pronounced ka, but also can be spoken as its regular English pronunciation of comma. And double dash is pronounced as dosh. Here's how to pronounce the voice codes you'll dictate when identifying speakers. Say Judmac for the court. For the witness, Whitmac. And for speaker types that are to be identified by names, such as attorneys, you can have as many as you can count by saying SPE1, SPE2, SPE3, etc. Or alternatively, you could use Spocks instead if that pronunciation distinction works best for your particular voice. Spocks 1, Spocks 2, Spocks 3, etc. As for question and answer markers, to indicate a question, say keek. To indicate an answer, say cack. And finally, here are some pronunciations of the voice codes used for parentheticals. Off the record is freck freck. A break taken is break break. An interruption is ruption. Okay, now I'm going to do a quick demonstration of what you'll see on your screen as you dictate, speaking in a low volume at a real-time speed. Wish me luck, everybody. I'm going to be switching my open mic headset to my mask shortly. I tested this out prior to our meeting today, and everything worked well then, hopefully you'll be able to hear me and it will work just as well now. Okay, give me a moment. Speakers.
Testing, testing, Pirk. Can everyone hear me, Quee? Awesome, Pirk. Drex 1, good morning, Sir Pirk. What is your name, Cac? David Johnson. Keek, Mr. Johnson. Ka, have you ever had your deposition taken before, Cac? Never. Keek, just a few ground rules before we get started, Pirk. I'm going to ask you some questions, and your answers to my questions need to be verbal, Pirk. You can't nod your head or shake your head in response, Pirk. You have to give a yes or a no, or some kind of other proposed response, Pirk. Do you understand that, Cac? Yes. Keek, we need to try not to talk over each other because it's very difficult for the court reporter to take down multiple people talking at the same time. Pirk, okay, Cac, yes. Keek, if I ask a question that you don't understand or that's confusing, Ka, either ask me to repeat it, rephrase it, clarify it, and I'll do my best to do so. Pirk, okay. Cac, yes. Keek, how old are you, Cac? I'm 54. Keek, how tall are you and how much do you weigh, Cac? I'm 6'1", height Mac, and weigh approximately 275 pounds. Keek, are you currently employed, Cac? Yes, Keek, where do you work? Cac, at UPS. Keek, what do you do there, Cac? I'm a delivery driver. Keek, tell us, please, what circumstances brought you here today, Pirk? Cac, I was involved in a car accident while at work. Spee 1, Your Honor, if I could proffer the facts of the accident, Qui Judd Mac, yes, you may. Spee 1, okay. Your Honor, on January 7, 2018, the plaintiff had just dropped off a package at a customer's residence and was hit by a truck while pulling out onto the road, causing injury to his left arm and shoulder. Parpar. He was seen and treated by Dr. Grant, his primary care physician. On that same day, Dr. Grant examined him and then referred him for an MRI. Parpar, at this time, I'd like to offer that MRI into evidence. Spee 2, no objection, Your Honor.
Woohoo, I'm back. Can everybody hear me okay? Yay. Okay. Now, I realized I was probably going a little faster in some spots and a little slower in other spots. I was reading from a page here, so because I'm not that creative to just be able to make stuff up, in my head for Q&A material. So I tend to use old transcripts to help me out with that. But anyway. But that's okay. People will, when you're in the working world, there will be times when it's just going super lightning fast and then everything slows down and then you can catch your breath more. So it all balances out. And now I also want to say this is a brand new user that I created. I got a brand new computer. I got new dictation devices. I'm always experimenting with newer technology and so that I can determine what the best speech silencer and uh, USB sound card combinations are. So anyway, with this being a brand new user, I did have some an old dictionary that I imported. It was in Eclipse to translate the majority of my punctuation and some common phrases that I'm used to dictating. But there are some things that I didn't have an opportunity being a brand new user, some conflicts that I didn't have an opportunity to resolve prior to putting this demonstration together. So I just wanted to point out, if I don't know if you all can see my screen very well. Yes. Okay. So I have my fat blinking cursor is on the word doctor right here. Doctor is spelled out, and then grant. The speech engine just chose the regular English word grant. What I'm going to do real quick, just because I hate looking at mistakes on my screen, I'll just use this as a teaching moment to show you in Eclipse we have artificial intelligence training. Oh, we can hear somebody. Oh, sounds like they muted themselves. Thank you very much. So in Eclipse, we can train Eclipse to correct anything that we don't like the way it's coming over from Dragon. We have the word doctor instead of DR period. So I have this set up as a conflict. I'm just going to press a little keystroke, not going into explaining much the details behind it, but just show you what can be done here. So I'm going to change this to the DR period option. Okay. And now next time I dictate this sentence, what's going to happen is Eclipse is automatically going to put DR, choose the DR period option in Dr. Grant. So that's how we, our CAT software improves our translation. Oh, actually, I was going to dictate that again for you and just prove to you that it comes out correctly the next time. But that would mean I would have to put you guys on hold and switch out dictation devices. And I want to now get to the questions. Of course, I'm happy to demonstrate, do anything you guys would like. But let me read some questions here. Let's see. It almost sounded like you were whispering, but you were not, right? Right. I was not whispering. Here, I will demonstrate what my whisper actually sounds like without needing to switch dictation devices. This is a whisper, folks. Hopefully you can hear this in my open mic headset. Based on those findings, Mr. Johnson was seen by an orthopedist, Dr. Lazarus, who reviewed. Could you guys hear that? Anyone typing into the chat window? Let me see. I have to go down to the bottom to read the comments. Excuse me. Okay, barely, but yes. Okay. Let me whisper loudly. Okay, so it's more, you can tell that there's really a difference between my whispered speech versus a low volume voice. Page 3 of the MRI shows a full thickness supraspinatus tendon tear with a 2.6 centimeter retraction. Whew, that's a little rough on one's voice, isn't it? Anyway, that's my whisper. Okay. So there is a big difference. We should not whisper, okay? For any of those of you who maybe arrived later in the presentation and didn't catch the part about do not whisper, do not whisper. So I'm throwing that out there now. So let me just read a sentence here of my dictation voice. Based on those findings, Mr. Johnson was seen by an orthopedist, Dr. Of course, it sounds a lot different in an open mic headset than it sounds in the speech silencer. So anyway, to duplicate that, just remember when you heard me during the demonstration, our voices sound different inside the silencer than it's going to sound in the open room. Okay, and also the silencer I'm using, it's a talk technology silencer with a smart mic, and it amplifies your voice a lot. So that's one of the reasons it sounds different as well. Okay, so let me see what I've got cooking next in our presentation. Oh, okay, let me just cover couple more things real quick. I wanted to address some key points of things you may be wondering about. First might be, how easy or difficult is it to learn to punctuate during real time? Punctuation during dictation is simply a matter of seeing it in your mind's eye, just as you would when performing manual typing as you listen to audio or take notes during a lecture. So for those of you who already have experience with manual transcription also, of course, anyone who sends text messages should, you'll know this is a natural thought process for most of us anyway. Most of us tend to have some decent basic writing skills. For example, if you encounter sentences like, I am fine, how are you? Say you're sending a text message even. You're not going to write out only the words and then fully leaving out the punctuation altogether and then go back to insert the punctuation. Your common sense would have you including periods, commas, and question marks the best way you could as you write the words. Of course, you may at times have to go back to edit whatever you didn't initially get right, but at your very first writing attempts, punctuation is automatically included in your thoughts. It's in our nature to save time by doing tasks more efficiently. Again, you do the best you can to punctuate during your initial thoughts about words and how they fit into that context. The only difference between manually writing or typing punctuation versus dictating it is your means of output. Rather than using your hands, you're just using your mouth. That's all. But the thought process is exactly the same. Other things you may be wondering about is how it's possible to manage dictating at perfectly clearly high speeds as you go back and forth between questions and answers like a tennis match and properly identify who's speaking. It can feel a lot like mental gymnastics in the beginning, but just as you began walking after mastering your baby crawl, progress is a law in voice writing as well. Developing a dictation mindset comes with practice, lots of listening and repeating, and being careful to enunciate your words. You practice at slower speeds in the beginning. Once you've achieved high enough accuracy at that level, you then incrementally adjust your dictation rate as your accuracy increases on up to the point where you're real-time ready. So that's it for my presentation insofar as basic dictation, things to be aware of, techniques, enunciating clearly. I'm not sure I used this term, but word boundaries, that's also an important distinction I wanted to make in our clearly speaking and enunciating words to make sure sometimes one word will end in an S and the other and the following word maybe the S could be attached to it and form a completely different word if there's not a good enough boundary. Like, for example, he sat versus he's at. So in context like that, you want to say he's at versus he sat, he's at, he sat. Okay? So now I'm looking forward to hearing from you, whether you have questions, concerns, comments, any feedback whatsoever. Let me know. I'll be paying attention to the chat window. Okay, let's see. Let me expand this a little bit. Your normal voice is so much different than your reporter voice. I'm reading a question, by the way. What is your favorite tip for getting that perfectly quiet reporter voice? Ooh, that's a good one. So generally, what I've noticed is my voice, uh, not only my voice volume lowers, but my pitch lowers also. I mean, it might be different for all of you. We all have to work within our own nature, right? With what's comfortable for us. For me, I tend to maintain a better steadiness in my voice when I actually lower my pitch as I lower my volume. So you might want to try with different pitches yourself. And then have, if anyone has a handheld digital recorder that you can hold a foot away from yourself as you're dictating, make sure you put your silencer to your face, forming a secure seal so that no sound escapes air, and record yourself as you're dictating, keeping the recording device about a foot away from you. Then play it back and see if you can hear yourself. Now, another thing is, um, you want to speak in the lowest possible volume, but if it causes you to um, leave out sounds, play back your speech as well. Your recorded speech after you dictate in Dragon or Eclipse, just do a speech playback and make sure you can hear every part of every word you're saying, like contractions wouldn't versus wouldn't. Okay? A lot of times we can feel ourselves making a full sound production, going through all the physical movements with the mouth and the tongue, but we don't let the sound reach the microphone. So, and think about this. There's a difference. I'm gonna say a contraction again. Um, I'm saying I'm not making full sound production by having the sound reach the microphone right now. Okay, I'm saying the word wouldn't, wouldn't. Now that's a full volume of voice. Now if I took my voice down a little bit lower and lower volume, lower pitch, you probably would not even hear the at the end of wouldn't. Okay, so wouldn't. It's that T that you want to have that sound reach the microphone. I hear someone speaking, whoever that is. You might want to put your phone on mute. Um, let's see what else. Uh, so there was something else about contractions that I wanted to mention. Maybe it will come back to me. Okay, let me see other questions. Okay, this person has two questions. When you mention that you use paper towels, do you just scrunch them up or fold them? Second, what silencer do you find to be the best at recognition and at possible sound absorption? Okay, let's start with the first question. When you mention that you use paper towels, do you just scrunch them up or fold them? Okay, I scrunch them up, and I actually, since I use the TalkTech silencer, their microphones are not moisture resistant. So I have to be very careful that no moisture buildup gets on that microphone. Your accuracy will just tank, and a lot of people have, when they've experienced moisture buildup on that microphone, they've thought there was something wrong with their device and they sent it back to the manufacturer to have it fixed or rewired or whatever, when actually what the problem was moisture buildup. And if they would have just let their speech silencer dry out for a couple of days and went back to using it, they would have seen that their accuracy was back. So anyway, I put a paper towel actually in that silencer on top of the microphone. I completely cover the microphone area. I do an audio setup with the acoustics that way. The paper towel where it's situated in the masks to exactly represent the exact acoustic environment that I'm going to be dictating in, because it does sound different when you have one padding versus another type of padding. Um, okay, so anyway, uh, and I also switch them out as frequently as possible. So the silencer that I'm using right now, that I used today for the demonstration, is has a smart mic in it, and that is really, you have to be careful with moisture buildup in that. So I try to switch out the paper towel every half hour, but sometimes I might dictate up to an hour and a half without switching out the paper towel, but I don't ever go past an hour and a half. But again, there's other materials you can use. You don't have to do it exactly the way I do it. My um, I just like to throw things away. I have disposables, instead of having to use something like ShamWow that I keep reusing. But if you prefer ShamWow, you can do that. Okay, second, what this was going back to the reading the question. Second, what silencer do you find to be the best at recognition and at possible sound absorption? Well, um, my experience has been the Smart Mic by Talk Technologies is really the most sensitive microphone. There is another speech silencing device. It's called the Mini Mask, made by Martell Electronics, and their microphones are actually moisture resistant. I did order their newest one. They delivered it to the wrong address. So I guess I will have it next week, but I wanted to be able to share that information with you all as well. I planned on originally plan on putting that, making that a part of the original presentation. But I'll get back with you guys next time we have an opportunity to visit, let you know my findings there. Um, I've never had any issues with Martell Electronics mini masks. I still own the first one that I began working with back in 1999 when I began. So and it still works very, very well. Okay, so let me see if there are any other questions. Sorry, give me a moment, please. I'm just reading through, trying to pick out what I can address. Hmm. Okay. What are some other key pointers that you can give us that would be beneficial, especially that you may have had questions about when you were getting started? Oh boy. Really know your equipment set up well. Um, you want to make sure show up to your job at least half an hour early. Actually, I would show up at about an hour beforehand. Get set up. Uh, if there are more than two attorneys in a deposition, say, of course, I was a freelance reporter for many years. I think something like 16 or something. And I've been working as a court reporter, official court reporter for the state of Maryland for about 5 years now. So I have experience in both environment types. Um, but here's what's also helpful is if you're going to have a ton of lawyers in, say you're taking a class action, you're working in class action litigation and you have like, uh, you could have maybe an average there of 8 attorneys easily. Um, you want to get there an hour early for sure. Set up your equipment. Make sure everything, all your microphones are turned on, whatever microphones you choose to use. Sometimes they're battery operated. They have on and off switches. Make sure you have fresh batteries. Um, Make sure your microphones are properly positioned to pick up sound. Also have uh, a headset that you can earphones that you can listen to, monitor as a recording is being made if you have a backup recording device. I'm just saying something that's going to be important to you out there in the working world. You might have backup devices. And then you want to educate the lawyers. You want to educate the lawyers, let them know what you're doing. You're making a real-time record. Record is only going to be as accurate as they allow you to make it. Therefore, you are asking them to please speak one at a time. Try to be as mindful as possible. Of course, they don't always obey, but so you're doing your job. You can raise your hand during the proceeding, and you can let them know that you'll be doing that if they start talking on top of each other. Or maybe you need something repeated, whatever hand signal you want to give, whatever. Also, uh, you can instruct them, please don't play musical chairs. So have everyone pick their seats prior to the start time of the proceeding. And you say, okay, great, you're going to be sitting here. You draw a little seating chart. You assign your speaker voice codes to each speaker and their positions around the table. And so your seating chart reflects that. So the number 1 circled might represent SPI1 or SPOX1, however you want to identify your speakers. And then you just let them know, okay, these are your assigned seats. If you want to choose a different seat, then choose it now. But once the proceeding begins, we're not going to have anyone playing any musical chairs. If you can get up and walk around if you'd like, but please don't switch seats with anyone because I'm identifying you based on your position in the room. And so anyway, you don't have to go get too much into detail. Just give them instructions and they'll appreciate that. Okay, let me see some other questions. Okay, someone said, wait, I missed that. What do you use paper towels for? Just as padding for inside, you place inside your speech silencer. That's what I personally do to absorb the moisture so it doesn't build up onto the microphone. But you can use ShamWow. A lot of people use ShamWow. Okay. Here's a question. What is a smart mic? It's just a brand of technology that is proprietary to this one company that manufactures speech silencers, and it's different from all the other microphones for voice writing on the market because it really is more like hearing aid technology or resembles that of hearing aid technology. It picks up on signal ranges that normal amplification mics don't detect. And so anyway, that's not too technical of a description of it, but that's basically what it does. It's a more sensitive microphone. Okay, I'm just reading some more here. Okay, I've been diligent in making new users for higher speeds. In a work environment when speech sounds are going to be in flux, how do we determine which user to use, or is it common practice to switch between users as speeds fluctuate? Well, it's not practical to switch between users as speeds fluctuate. So generally we don't do that because we don't have time for that. What I would do is pick your user that recognizes your fastest pace of speaking and use that as much as possible. And Dragon 15 has a pretty good uh, way of adjusting itself. It can adjust to if your volume goes up louder, or your pitch changes a little bit. It takes a couple cycles of your dictation when you change your dictation pattern, but it does readjust itself automatically. Okay, so that's one of the beautiful things about Dragon 15. Dragon 15, by the way, is so we're aware we're using speaker dependent speech recognition because we have a user specific to our voice that it understands. But Dragon 15 is actually designed as a speaker independent speech recognition program that works in a speaker dependent way. Okay, so for that reason, that's why it can adjust to our patterns so much more easily. Okay, I'm reading some more questions. Okay. How often should the voice mask be cleaned? Also, how is it cleaned? Especially if you may have become sick at some point during a court reporting session. Oh, wow. Okay. Um, I, I just keep my speech silencer cleaned regularly, just by switching out the paper towels and, um, but I would clean it with alcohol. There was someone, a voice writer in my office, a couple months ago. I had brought in uh, Lysol to clean things with, and she informed me that that was not healthy. So I just want to share that with you all. The best thing to do is clean with alcohol. She's a two-time cancer survivor, I believe, two-time cancer survivor, and so she doesn't want any kind of products around her. She's very informed about all that kind of stuff. Anything that could be cancer causing or whatever. I don't really know that much about it, but just out of respect for the information she was responsible enough to share with me, I'm just passing that on to you. Alcohol is good, and cotton balls. If you have become sick at some point, definitely, definitely clean that speech silencer very well. Okay, I am going back to reading. If you have a cold or your voice is hoarse, will it affect the dictation? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You're going to have those days where you have to just make sure your voice is so important. Just have to keep your throat from having any hoarseness to it. Cough drops when you're sick, whatever it is you have to do. And someone is informing us the dollar store has the little alcohol wipes, 100 count for $1. Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. That's much better than cotton balls in a container of alcohol you have to lug around. All right. Here's a question. Won't the alcohol start breaking down the rubber part of the mask? Hmm. Um, I would think it would dry right away, uh, but I am not sure what else one would clean it with. I know bleach would break it down, but hmm. Okay, I don't see any other questions that are incoming. It is, let's check the time. Oh, it is 7 o'clock. Uh, Miss Trahan, are you there? If you can unmute yourself. Oh, maybe she.
Hello.
Oh,
Can you
hi.
can you hear me?
I can hear you
Hello.
fine. Hi. Well, Miss
Great
Trahan,
presentation. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to take an hour of everyone's time this evening. Uh, I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to point out, or you wanted us to discuss.
No, I thought that was fabulous. I think you covered all bases, and we really appreciate you taking time to meet with us like that.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much. And I realize we have a lot of students who are more advanced at this stage. So, but I realize that it's always a good thing to revisit dictation basics. And
Yes, we have some advanced. I believe we have brand new students this quarter. We've got the mix all across the board tonight.
well, thank you so much for inviting me, and just let me know if I didn't get to answer all the questions. I thought I read all the questions, but if I didn't get to answer any questions, Miss Trahan, please email me and let me know, and I will make sure that I get back with the students. That I will send those answers to you to forward to them.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, everyone who's still here, if you still have questions, please forward me your emails and I will relay them to Miss Keys.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Betty.
much. Okay, everybody have a good evening.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.